So the Suspiria remake has arrived from director Luca Guadagnino, director of Call Me By Your Name. What Dario Argento's original Technicolor masterpiece is famous for most of all is the colours and the music, two elements of filmmaking that could be considered supplementary. The story and acting is nothing special, so it does beg the question, why does the film need to be remade? You cannot replicate the look of the original, nor can the bombastic score be challenged, so why? Interestingly, Guadagnino's film intentionally moves away from what made the original famous. The music is not intrusive and invasive and instead deviously understated, and the colours are muted and subdued. There is still an old school feel about the way the film is shot. Maybe it's the numerous quickfire zoom-ins and the much slower, menacing ones, but I kind of got the vibe of 1970s horror films from this flick. Anywho, it's to the film's credit that it went in a different direction, but it still earns its badge as a remake by having the same overall story setup and structure. Suspiria is a film that captured my attention and refused to let go until the film had finished, despite the ending not really doing justice to the rest of the film's stimulation. It is disadvantaged by us already pretty much knowing from the original film the mystery that the ballet place is a secret hideout for witches. But it does only momentarily seem to care about this, instead choosing to focus on the main character's seduction into the witch's world. There are some notable ghastly scenes, one where as the main character dances in one room, unknowingly with every flick of her head or jumping of her body she causes a girl in another room who has attempted to run away to spasm and her body to contort, hyperextend and ultimately break apart until she resembles nothing more than a crumbling heap. Even more horrific is that she's still alive and is taken away by the witches by means of daggers being pierced into her to lift her and take her away for further punishment. Freaky. I don't know why, but as interested as I was, I didn't really enjoy Suspiria. I like to have fun with my horror movies, and there's many ways to do so. Revel in a spooky atmosphere, piss your pants over jump scares, and, stay in disgust at triumphantly gory effects. But Suspiria didn't really have any of these, aside from the scene I just mentioned. Sure, there was an underlying sense that something is off, like the vague mentions of terrorism in the news reports and mentions of bombs provoking a sense of unease, but this stuff is eventually thrown away and the film tells us in the first scene that there are witches in the place, and there's no real tension in the film. It doesn't sell its premise, it doesn't quite cultivate this promising story, it just kind of lays out all its cards on the table straight away. It's hard to know exactly just what Guadagnino's angle is here, what kind of film this is supposed to be. For the most part, it's pretty straightforward, albeit with some interesting imagery and metaphors. The climax was a little meh. I thought all the random art house style shots spread throughout the film might have accumulated into something, some kind of revelation, but it's a little more simpler than what I anticipated and it pretty much is just a bloodbath. I hate to use this bogey word, but the film does come off as a little pretentious, a little self-righteous, and it does make you think, was it really worth going through 2.5 hours to get to that climax? But then again, journey over destination and all that. By the way, and this isn't really a spoiler, but before the film came out, I found out that Tilda Swinton, in addition to playing her character, was also playing a male character under heavy makeup. It's pretty obvious who it is when you see the film. After all, it's the only major male character in the film. And I thought this was supposed to be some hidden thing, and it's revealed in the end that this guy was the witch all along, but that wasn't the case. There was no twist or anything, she was just playing a man, on top of already having a role in the film. A pretty bizarre and pointless thing to do. Apparently the director and writer didn't want the male gaze to intrude the film, but that is such a stupid line of thinking, because it requires us to know that this is a man played by a woman, which is ultimately distracting. And when Swinton was asked why she played that character, she said something along the lines of, well, for the hell of it. And that does kind of sum up a lot of the creative choices in the film. It's done for the hell of it. The film itself seems to be made for the hell of it, and it's a bit disheartening to know that after all the elongated steering, a woman playing a man's role, the very length of the film, the flashbacks to the protagonist's past, all the quick shots of random freaky stuff, it's just a group of filmmakers doing things for the hell of it. I think one of Suspiria's problems is that at its core it's a low-brow horror subject. After all, it is a slasher film, but it presents itself as high art, which is intriguing for a while until the climax reveals it's really quite a simple and straightforward film. All the attempted weight, like adding the Holocaust, the Berlin Wall and other stuff, ultimately do nothing to service the film except expose it for the artsy-fartsy wannabe film that it is. It's the equivalent of going to the restaurant for a meal and you get a dancing band, a luxurious painting to look at while you wait for dinner, exquisite cutlery, but when the food arrives it's no better than your local takeaway. I give it a 6 out of 10.